This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
It is 6:02. I will now call to order the April 22nd meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. This meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Kathy, are there other housekeeping items you'd like to go over?
Yeah, just noting that our next meeting is May 6th. Yeah, I don't know why you're going to care. Sorry, Dan. I don't know how I miscounted. It's at May 6th, and people who are here, if you want to make a comment, you can use the raise hand button. I'm not going to read the rest of this only because there's no one else here virtually, so I think we're okay. But if anyone has questions, just let me know. Great.
All right. Are there any public concerns, non-agenda items?
I have not received any.
It looks like we do not have anyone from the public that's not here for a hearing. So we'll move on to public hearings and meetings. Our first order of business is a public hearing continued from 3/25/2024 for a notice of intent filed by the engineer on behalf of Matthew and Alexandra Dodge for ecological restoration project at 120 East Street, map 111, lot 41. This is Mass DEP file number 1510328. Thank you, Kathy. All right, so at the last meeting, we discussed at length some of the resource area questions and impacts. And Bucky, I wonder if you could reintroduce yourself for the record, please, and then walk us through the changes that you've made.
Of course, Cassie. Hello, my name is Bucky Sparkle. I am the engineer for the project. I also had an unfortunately timed dental appointment this afternoon, and they swore the Novocaine would have worn off by now. So if you have difficulty understanding me, just please let me know, and I will do my best without biting my tongue in the process.
Understood.
Okay. Would you like me to do presenter mode? Is that, it looks like I can.
Please.
How about I do that? Screen one. No, this is still not the application that I know.
Oh, on the bottom of the screen.
I'm finding it. Thank you. Did it work? Thank you.
We're not seeing it yet, but
You're not. Oh well, then I might have got ahead of myself there. That should be a loop of you seeing me, and then hopefully that's the plan.
There we go.
All right. Thank you for confirmation. This is actually the existing conditions, which is hasn't effectively changed. So after the last very educational meeting in some regards about some of the nuances of the site versus the Wetlands Protection Act, there were a few plan notes that have been made, changes to the plan, and then how we delineated and discussed resource areas. So in terms of the plan notes, I will zoom in a little bit here. So this spillway, it is now scheduled to be fully infilled, although I suppose it doesn't quite say it on this. I think I have it on the detail, but the hatch, believe it or not, the hatch is changed. And my letter does indicate that the riprap for the outlet of the pond is to be fully filled in and planted. There was a request about skunk cabbage in the area that is to be the channel to be restored. And the skunk cabbage is going to be here. Any skunk cabbage within limits of grading is to be transplanted to nearby wetland areas. Although I won't jump to it, and the general conditions on the title sheet, number 14, listed multiple potential erosion controls, one of which was hay bales, but it was just an example. Nevertheless, I was asked to remove that from the plan because we are not specifying hay or straw bales for this project, so that note has been edited. There were other elements about the resource areas that were discussed with Mark Stinson's guidance. And the original, maybe I will go back to the existing conditions because this is an existing condition note. So I can at least describe which. This pipe, this 14-foot long plastic pipe is being considered as bank in terms of disturbance calculations. The existing pond itself, which is about 1,300 square feet, is going to be categorized as land underwater. Instead, we had before it was as a wetland. The perimeter of the pond has been designated as bank. And what I have done is gone through and taken the survey points, and the flags are slightly confusingly labeled B. Sometimes that means bank. It's just the B series. It is the points of the pond that the surveyors took that I have designated as bank, and these are the gray line with these funny little pentagon symbols are what I'm talking about as bank. And then there would be a BVW between the bank and the B series flags, which is basically on the southern half of the pond, with the northern portion being stacks of concrete bags. So that just clarified the resource areas so that the calculations and the numbers are all now clearly established. And I'll get to that in a moment, those numbers. Other aspects of the project include that we are withdrawing the request of an ecological restoration project and just going for a restoration project to overcome deficiencies or violations of the act where the previous owner had brought into place, creating these resource areas. And yes, and I do have then new numbers, which I'll bring up here. I think I have to stop and then start as far as I can figure this out. Allow, okay. Presenting I have two screens and it has, I think you're over here. All right. So the new resource area impacts with the updated definitions, the buffer zone, we're altering about 4,300 square feet, but there's no change to the buffer zone. Land under water bodies, we're there's my tongue, altering 1,325 square feet. That is the existing pond surface. We are creating a 1,500 square foot pond, so it's going up by 210 square feet by the end of the project. The bordering vegetated wetlands, which are both downstream of the pond, where we're going to restore the old stream channel, and a little bit around the pond itself. There is alteration there of 738 square feet, but by the time the project is done, the pond project itself is expanding the BVW area, and that'll be 1,239 feet, so that goes up by just over 500 square feet. And then the banking, which, and this math includes that 14-foot long pipe, as well as the channel creation, disturbing 168 feet of bank, but creating 321 feet. So again, there's a net increase of that resource area on the property. And those are the changes to the plans.
So Bucky, could you go back to the proposed conditions and just show us where those additions of resource areas are occurring so that we're clear?
I can present something else. Oh. Screen 2. Okay, and And then here. Can you see it this time? The plans? No.
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, you can. Okay, good. So to walk through those resource areas, yes. Let me zoom in just a little bit. I'll start downstream. This is all BVW within the A series of flags. And this is the high point that has filled in with sediment over time. So we want to extend the channel, which is upstream, and just continue it to the channel that is downstream. It's about, I believe is about 80 feet long, and just put in a grass swale through there. And then if we go upstream.
And so that's, you're adding bank and land underwater there?
That we're adding bank. Actually, I didn't count that as adding land underwater, but I guess that would be the case since it's intermittent, and there wasn't a previously defined bank. So I guess we end up with more land underwater than my 210 square foot calculation. I did not include that. I only counted that as bank.
Okay. And there's a subtraction, I assume, of BVW?
Of BVW, yeah, that's the subtlety that you immediately caught on. So it's a 2 foot wide over 80 foot long area. So it's 160 square feet, which would come out of the BVW addition and go into the land underwater.
Okay.
Okay. Just make a note of that. And then moving upstream, if I may. Again, I guess the definitions don't change things very much, but this is the spillway that we talked about that would be fully vegetated. And then the pond design has not changed whatsoever in terms of contours and elevation. Well, I guess those are synonymous. The shape of that hasn't changed. But the resource areas are, of course, on the existing conditions going to be expanded because the pond got bigger and the slopes more subtle, and the vegetation installation is quite a bit of wetland vegetation that will be replacing what is currently lawn.
And so the 500 square foot gain of BVW is all meant to be on the edges of the pond?
Yes, the pond perimeter, and the planting plan will help govern that. If I can go to the planting plan as well, which jump down here. So just maybe let me look at the key here one moment. The wetland mix is this little icon here, which of course downstream, it's all lawn, mostly that's going to be converted to BVW vegetation. And then there's a blend of aquatic plants and aquatic shallow plants, and many of these habitat spanning species are all wetland plants, and basically everything within basically a foot of the pond level is going to be wetland, just by proximity.
Okay.
As you can see, it's a far more diverse ecosystem than is currently the case.
Yeah. All right, I think I'm clear on what's happening now. Do other members of the commission have questions?
So from a regulatory perspective, the original permitting pathway that the applicant came to us with was an ecological restoration project, which allows for the loss and or conversion of one sort of wetland to another sort of wetland. But in this case, we're looking at it as an enforcement action. Again, the enforcement involves a change in a BVW to a different kind of wetland. And so we're not looking at the wetland plantings around the pond as a replication area, right? we're looking at it just as a part of the landscape, and it's going to be nice. So,
Correct.
okay, just wanted to cover it, make sure we're all on the same page with that.
Yep.
That makes sense to me.
Other questions?
So,
All right. I think we are in pretty good shape here. And so administratively, I think what we're going to do, if I'm understanding and remembering correctly, Cassie, is just to issue a standard NOI. Or sorry, not a standard NOI, a standard order of conditions, which would be and we're treating that's always one of the options we have if we're looking to do restoration from an enforcement. So that's the way that we're going to treat this.
Exactly right. And
Okay.
so my plan was to explain that in the attachment A of the findings to be like, that's what this is. This is the pathway that we use to like permit this.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So
Great. All right. So if there are no further questions or discussion, we could at this point entertain a motion to,
do you want to discuss the conditions?
We should maybe
Yeah.
run through the conditions,
Yep.
so we know where,
good point.
is everything listed here somewhere?
They're not.
Okay.
I have a few that, because I
Okay.
generally was just gonna use our boilerplate, but
Sure.
I wanted to get clarification from the commission on whether or not you wanted to include some things. The first one that I was asked about is reporting. Do you want to require reporting? Do you want weekly reporting? Do you want, like the normal standard for reporting would be, under all order conditions is weekly reporting and after every 0.25 inch rain event. And so just, but the commission has flexibility on that. If they want to do it a different way, you're welcome to. And the other thing maybe something to consider in tandem with that is a lot of times when we do enforcement, we require this kind of seasonal reporting on the success of the plantings, but I don't know that that's necessary in this instance. Like you said, it's not a replication area really. The restoration is removing the fill, the illicit fill along the stream, and then daylighting the stream as well, and kind of regrading the pond. So
Success of the plantings may not be critical to what we're concerned about.
right. So that's the question is like, well, maybe you want this seasonal reporting instead of the weekly reporting, or both, or one and not the other. I'm just thinking like maybe.
Yeah, so what does the bank and what will that like little restored stream segment look like in terms of what makes it stable? How does it get treated? Because if we're not requiring specific plantings there, it's just kind of like we're trying to return this area to how it was before, and we don't really know super well how it would have been before, then maybe completion of the physical construction there and having it be sufficiently stable is enough, but I guess I don't have a picture in my mind of what that looks like yet.
Well, I'm certain that, the owners are doing this work in general to establish that vegetation as well as clean up the pond. I mean, that is a primary motivation, which is nice to have that as the reason for the project is the final result, and it's not so they can put up a parking lot somewhere.
Could you reach into the planting plan, Bucky?
Yes, I can bring that back up. I find the correct series of buttons.
My eyeballs were looking at the pond and not at the stream.
Yeah, I believe the only planting proposed for the stream channel area is the wetland mix, correct?
It is. It is just the wetland mix.
And is there, remind us if there's any sort of stream bed treatment detail for that channel, or is it just going to be soil?
The existing is soil, and I'm just double checking. I mean, I have grass swale as the the intention. So it was going to be a planted. I mean, but in terms of grass, it would be actually the wetland seed mix. But this would be the cross section, which is similar to what is upstream. But downstream is much more like a natural stream, like an actual what you would think of as a stream
Right.
with a key channel. But this
Right.
would be more of the upstream, very gentle, low velocity, low volume discharge. And I felt that the the inclusion of the wetland plant mix was going to be adequate to stabilize. But we could make it slightly more robust if, but it'd be a little less natural.
And the blanket that you have detailed there, the erosion control blanket, what is do you know what the lifespan on that is? Is that a 1-year product, a 2-year product?
Well, I'll tell you, I have a 1-year product in my house, and 3 years later, it's still there. So those product names are a little bit strange, but if there were a minimum time that the commission would be comfortable with, I'd be happy to get it if it's available. I also know that sometimes 100% biodegradable blankets are exceptionally difficult to source. Unfortunately, maybe that's not as difficult the last couple of years, but I don't want a really heavy blanket. I don't like those very much for these situations. They tend to float before restoration comes in, before roots take in. But the lighter blankets seem to tack in a little bit better.
Okay. And so the idea for this portion of the stream is that because it's intermittent, it's going to actually vegetate, and the vegetation is what's going to stabilize it.
That is the case, and that's generally the case of what is upstream as well. Although the upstream does have a fair amount of rock, but I think that was an aesthetic placement. I don't see that as needing necessary to stabilize the bank, especially since the flow is so low, and it's really mostly on one side versus another. I would rather not see rock there.
Agreed. So I think for this section, I do think it would be wise to have the monitoring after a 1/4-inch storm event, just so we can make sure that we're not seeing erosion before that vegetation takes hold.
Okay.
I feel less inclined to have weekly reporting outside of rain events. I don't know what others think.
That's fine. I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. 1/4-inch rain event. So it gets wet, and I'm going to Easthampton, and I'll let you know what I see.
And then I think the vegetation of this area is certainly crucial to its success. And so I think it wouldn't hurt to just roll all of the vegetation into at least one season's reporting to make sure that we're getting the coverage that we need to make sure everything's
Great. I'm glad for that. No problem.
And so from my understanding, so one season's reporting, would that be something that you want to see happen like after the first year, or as just one report before they get a COC or something like that?
Remind us of what the timing is for when you hope to do the work, Bucky?
Preference would that this would happen during typically low flow. It's getting harder and harder to predict. So I would expect July, August, or September. Enough time to get seed established. I like it a little later because some of those wetland plants really like to freeze before they germinate.
Okay. So assuming that weather cooperates and you're able to get plants in at a reasonable time this year, I would propose we do an end of season report on vegetative cover and then another one in the next growing season, just to confirm that we're still seeing coverage. That sound good to everybody? So it'll wind up being 2 reports, but one will be sort of a post-planting before things go dormant, and then one a full growing season later.
That seems appropriate and in line with my client's goals.
All right, Cassie, what other thoughts would you have on conditions?
That was the big one. The other question was for when they do come for certificate of compliance, does the commission want to require as-built, or does that not really match up with this as well, since there's nothing like no construction really? Do we want just a letter in that instance saying that it was built? Like we normally have a letter and the as-built, but maybe, I don't know, we could require both, but.
Yeah. I don't think this is a project that really needs to have a surveyed as-built. So maybe it's just red lines of the plan with any deviations noted, and then a letter of substantial conformance.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It is not a precision design in many regards. So, yeah, providing a sketch if there are any deviations and provide a letter stating that it is all in compliance, or if it's not, then we'll know what we have to do.
Right.
Okay. That was really it. I mean, in terms of, otherwise I just use our typical boilerplate from there. Yeah, I've got everything. So, unless anybody has any other thoughts or things like that, one of the things that is unique to this project is taking this kind of cabbage. So even though it's already in the plan, it might be whistling in there.
Yeah.
But, otherwise, that's pretty much it.
Sounds good. Do we have, Cassie, a form in here?
No, nope,
Okay.
we don't. So because it's all done through EDP now. So we'll do the vote and then I will include the electronic signature authorization
All right.
attachment in the EDP. So no.
There to.
I'll make a motion that we issue an order of conditions as discussed for the project at 120 East Street, the Dodge project at 120 East Street.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? Ryan?
Aye.
August? Weeks?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Motion carries. So we will get that order together, Bucky, and get it over to you and your client.
Fabulous. Thank you very much for helping me wiggle through this weird little project. But I really do look forward to the end result. I'm very excited about that. So much appreciated. And of course, I will be in touch.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Bye.
All right, moving on, request for certificate of compliance. Cassie, do we have any new information for the pump house demolition?
No, unfortunately, the reason is because the city engineer has left and so that position is currently vacant, but I am in discussion with the current staff engineer about another way forward of getting it either from her or the new city engineer.
Okay.
But if it's cool with you guys, I'll keep it on there where it is on the agenda because I don't know if I'll have it by the next meeting, but I figure just keep it on the floor.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Enforcement actions, any updates?
The only update is I still need to, basically for all of them, I'm going to be setting up a site visit soon for all the ones listed there, except for Loudville. We went there recently. We did a site visit on March 30th. I guess the question is if we're waiting for them to submit potential changes, but I didn't know if the commission wanted to talk about what they saw in terms of the planting survival from restoration area. If that made you guys feel like, or if you feel ready to talk about that now, if you wanted to wait until the project managers were here next time, but it's up to you guys.
Does anybody have thoughts you want to share? Or was it, who all was there? Let's see. It was
I didn't make it.
Weeks, Patrick, Carr, Youssef,
Yeah.
and Cassie.
I think it was, I thought that the slope restoration looked pretty good. Down in the wetlands area, pretty hard to tell because there'd been so much flooding that it was hard to even tell where the enforcement area was. And then a lot of the plants that seemed like they had been coming up just got swamped.
Literally, figuratively.
Maybe that needs more time. Dry out.
Yes, I think one of the things I noted is that it was too early for shrubs to have leafed out. And so we didn't have a good sense of survival there. So I do want to do another confirmation to check that those have survived. I think there were 10 or 12 shrubs or something that were installed. The skunk cabbage was coming up. We were seeing recovery of some of that natural material, which tells me that we got enough of the surface material and sediment that was deposited there off. There has been additional natural flood deposition in the restoration area and all along that reach we observed. I was not seeing conditions that look substantially different in the enforcement area versus some of the other areas along that reach. Somewhat less skunk cabbage emerging, but not so much less that it really raised any flags for me. So I think my biggest question was just going back to check that we're getting survival of the shrubs.
That's how I remember it as well. It looked like the stream is working to cut its way over in that
Yeah.
direction. But,
Yes, it definitely did.
that's got nothing to do with the project, really.
Yeah. And I will echo that the live stakes in the slope restoration area generally seemed like they were starting to leaf out for the most part. So we can check those again when we look at the shrubs, but I think the success up there seemed pretty promising so far. I did ask for them to confirm, and I think they did look on the plans at what the seed mix was that was used on that slope restoration. I think they said it was just the erosion control mix maybe. And I did ask them to check what was in there that would be successful in shade, because we were seeing quite a bit of shade even before the trees leafed out. So I am wondering if we may need a different seed mix applied that has more shade friendly species in it. That may be something that needs follow up.
Okay, I can definitely do that. Okay. So yeah, I can organize a site visit. And do you all want to do another one now that some more time has passed and more things come out, or do you want to wait a little longer, or just have me do a site visit and bring back pictures to see how the shrubs are doing? Or
I would be happy with you doing it, Cassie. I feel like I saw enough that if you're able to confirm survival of those other plants, I would be satisfied. I don't know if others want to join.
If you want to put it out there when you're going.
Yeah, like,
I will definitely. And then the other one is, I don't know if we want to talk about this or wait to the project manager here, but the in-stream mitigation. Again, we were trying to reach out to the folks at UMass about that. We haven't been successful yet. Do we want to try to do something else in lieu of that? But yeah, I don't know if we want to talk about it now.
So one idea that I had, since we've talked about the fact that we know there was an impact. It's hard to quantify. It's hard to put any specific requirements for restoration on that, because the sediment is always moving naturally. And so even though we know that there was an impact, that specific impact has probably been carried away.
Sure.
That does not, in my mind, negate the fact that there should be some mitigation for those impacts. So one thought that I had was, because the adjacent property is PCT owned, correct?
Yes.
Was to require some sort of fee to basically go into an account that could then be used by PCT on their property to do some enhancement of the area there, whether that's invasive management or some other kind of in-stream work, and kind of let them have some guidance in terms of what that looks like for their property. I don't know how people feel about that idea.
Because there's no like hands-on work that can be done, since it has taken so long for it to go through.
Well, we know that the sediment has shifted again. I mean, we see that down there with all of the deposition. And so trying to do something specific to what was the material that was input into the stream, like that material is now further downstream.
And it allows PCT to be discretionary in terms of how they approach this.
Right.
So, this resonates positively with me.
How do we put a number on it?
Yeah.
and does that mean instead of any invasive species removal on their side of on the condo association's side of the stream?
Right. Because one of the things we talked, I think we threw around the idea of invasive species management before. And one of the things that came up that, I don't know if we mentioned it or maybe someone from PCT mentioned it, but in the larger context, if we have them do invasive management just in that area, it's not going to be meaningful because it's just going to come back in from everywhere around it.
Right.
So if PCT had other funds to do invasive management or their own labor to contribute and could do a larger effort, then this might be something that contributed to that. But I think if it was done in isolation, it would be somewhat pointless. So yeah, like Hal said, this gives just some discretion for them to kind of figure out what would be the most effective thing to do to enhance the quality of the stream or habitat along that reach.
And I will just say for the record, in terms of doing work that would be in direct response to the sediment entering the stream originally, it was a recommendation from Scott Jackson and the state Fish and Wildlife, I think, who else we talked to, who were saying that you don't want to go in there and dredge out that material because it'd be hard to identify which material it was, but also it will heal itself essentially better than we would be able to do directly.
Yep.
So we weren't pursuing that. It wasn't like we weren't able to do it because it took so long. It was like we chose not to pursue that as the mitigation for this. But we still know that it was impactful, that turbid water clouding the stream is a type of unnatural impact. Though that does happen sometimes naturally.
Mhm.
That was an unnatural impact that happened that we want mitigation for, because that's a type form of pollution.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if there's a mechanism through which we have authority to do that. I'm not an expert in those areas, so I would suggest that it would probably be something negotiated with them and not something that we would like
Right.
Demand a number.
just in terms of like, we'll stop talking about this if we can come to an agreement on a number.
Maybe we throw it in front of them and say, this
Right.
is what we're thinking of, and let them come back to us with some kind of proposed offer or something, so we're not trying to throw a number at them.
Are you saying without them?
Well, just say to tell Loudville, hey, we're thinking of that you give some money to Wisconsin Trust so they can deal with issues and see if they are in agreement with that. If they come back with some reasonable amount that they're willing to pass on. And if it makes sense that we would accept that and continue. Instead of trying to come up with, okay, $10,000 and then have them freak out.
Right.
And we can't enforce it anyways, probably, but.
Well, one thing that I could do in preparation for our next meeting is, one, reach out to DEP and be like, what would be a mechanism for something?
Okay.
So he might know somewhere they did something like this before,
Sure,
similar.
okay, that's a good plan.
So reach out to them and then also reach out to PCT so if that's something they're interested in. They have an idea of what they would want. Maybe they already have a project in mind with a price point in mind that we could start there. But yeah, that would be my next two steps that I would think
Okay.
I would do in preparation for the next meeting. That seems reasonable.
Mhm. Yeah, that'd be helpful. And Cassie, if you would also, just thinking about the logistics of this, I kind of have a hunch that it would be easier because we don't have a city mechanism in place for this if they were to essentially give a donation directly to PCT for their use than if it was coming through the city somehow in an economic transaction. So maybe if you could ask DEP if they see any issues with that too.
I could definitely do that.
That makes sense.
I just have a feeling that's
Sure.
probably a lot cleaner than
It's a lot
trying to
easier.
figure out.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what about a timeline for the donation? Like, do they have to, would we do it, or EEP saying, if you give this donation, it would have to be within how much time? Immediately, 6 months, within the year?
I mean, if we're gonna stop talking about the violation, we're not gonna stop talking about it until that's done. So I kind of put that on them, I guess.
I have a feeling if we just said, hey, Carlos, send $5,000 to Pepcom, she would be like, done, because I'm so sick of talking about this. I can cap my losses at 45,000, I'll take it.
All right, let's see what Cassie comes up with. And
Yep.
That's a really good plan.
Evan, I went to a MACC training on enforcement, it was probably 2008 or 7 or something like that. And I think if we had an ordinance, then we could have this kind of stuff. in
Sure,
there.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
And we will
Yeah.
one day. We don't know.
Yeah,
We're trying to be creative.
right.
Cool.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to talk about on what we saw at the Loudville site visit? Outside of the basin, which we're waiting for input on, we know that's a ongoing issue.
There was a question about a steep slope behind at the limit of work behind 2 units. Yeah. And when I was looking at it, I was almost wondering if the the way it was graded in the field was a little bit different than on the drawings, and that was leading towards that slope being so steep. So, but that's just like my qualitative impression, you know,
Yeah.
because don't think, you know, when we permitted the project, I remember looking around at the grading, and I just don't remember seeing that steep of a drop off of the limit of work anywhere.
Okay.
So, I don't know. And I think that was that an issue that they were asking about, like that we need to do something about that, or was that just something where in the field we were just like, oh, look how steep this is?
It came up because they're transitioning to having the homeowners association kind of taking over managing the property. Some of the homeowners were concerned about those areas and thinking that they won't be stabilized into the future. But what I explained to them, procedurally at least, how it is for the commission is that currently the responsibility of the project managers is to contain the site and make sure that nothing is leaving the site. And it hasn't from those areas. When they come for certificate of compliance, they need to prove that those areas are permanently stabilized. And so that would be the time when the commission would make a determination, like, is this enough? Is it not enough? Do we need to make a change here? Like, what does the commission will have the discretion to be like, hey, this isn't right enough. And so currently my determination or my feeling is that there is no explicit action that needs to be taken right now because the site is contained there. But it is something that they'll need to really prove that it is permanently stabilized when they come for a COC, whenever that might be.
We'll also ultimately need as-built, and I don't think we've gotten any of that yet, have we, Cassie?
No.
So if there is a question about whether it has been graded to plan, it wouldn't hurt to put that question in their minds and ask them to take some initial spot shots and show us whether it is in fact graded correctly, so that if there's a problem, we can all be talking about how to address it before we see it on as-built as not to plan.
Yes.
Aren't they sort of also asking our advice on how to remedy it when we're out there? So.
Yeah, we talked about some additional plantings or something there to help kind of limit erosion potential, but if there is in fact a grading issue that's going to contribute to that being an erosion problem, it would be good to start at that source first before we are just looking at ways to mitigate it.
Yeah, right now it's like it might be an invitation for unpermitted, you know, future activity. Just like put stuff there to flatten it out, or, you know, I don't know.
Yeah. There's lots of those very steep, almost one-to-one transitions at other edges too. Do you see those on the plans? Do you have any concerns that those aren't as intended?
I didn't notice those areas. I was in the field, but I think the way it was all graded, it was supposed to be, you know, like a 2-to-1 slope or flatter usually. Like when I looked at that particular area, I'm just like looking at the buildings. It seemed like on the drawings, it was kind of supposed to be a gentle slope down to the limit of work, whereas it looks like it was graded flat.
Yeah, like a step.
A steeper drop off to make it a more usable space or something.
Right. So Cassie, if you could point out a few of those areas and ask them to give us some shots to show how that matches up with the proposed grading.
I can definitely do that.
I could be wrong, but it's just my impression.
Yeah, I mean, seeing it in the field, it seemed odd that would have been as designed. That there's this very stark step down from the yard level to the rest of the slope in a lot of places. Okay. All right. All right. We good on enforcement action?
Yes.
And I guess we sort of talked about the compliance update for that project at the same time. Open space updates, anything there?
Yes. So I regained contact with Land Stewardship Inc. for Echodale West Orchard area improvements. Jessica Applin got back to me. She's actually no longer with Land Stewardship Inc. I was able to get that confirmed. And she gave me contact for who the new project manager is in their company. So I just need to get back in that conversation with this new person. He briefly, said that it sounds like if you can mow it, So it's likely still too wet. We should go ahead and mow it, but otherwise we'll prepare for the next treatment of the herbicide out there. So I don't know, Jay, if you've been able to,
It's
but it's
so
too
wet,
wet.
it's just, you know, tear everything apart. That's all, just make a mess out of
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So that's kind of like where we've been at really is if we can mow it, let's mow it, but we haven't been able to mow it. So, but now they have new contact information. Hopefully the next meeting. I can tell you all.
It's progress, I guess.
Yeah.
Instead of radio silence.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other one, I don't have any updates for the CR for 385 Main Street. Just kind of waiting for Mass Audubon to reach back out with a memorandum of understanding template that they're going to hopefully in a future meeting come to a meeting and kind of talk about that with the commission.
Okay.
What would be in there?
Great. Sounds good. So on to compliance updates, which, as we said, we've already talked about Loudville, which other projects have updates?
Item D, Logan Properties off O'Neill Street. Just letting y'all know, I did the site visit on the 28th of March. Everything was good, no issues. I've got the pictures available if anyone wants to see them. I do need to send them a reminder of a coming expiration of their permit. It's June 16th. So I'll be sending them a reminder soon, this week. And then the next one would be compounds for the school. At the last meeting, I told you all that I had reestablished contact with the project managers for 200 Park Street, the school project. They said they'll be trying to come for a COC hopefully this spring. One of the biggest things is that rear basin, make sure it's functioning correctly. At the last meeting, we noted, hey, it just rained. If I go next day and did a site visit, that would have been after 48 hours when it should be drained.
Right.
And so I did go, and it was drained, which was pretty cool. So yeah, it looked good.
Where it used to just be a huge pond.
Yeah. So I can show you guys pictures now if you want, but just kind of generally know it was looking good. It wasn't like bone dry,
Yeah.
but it was,
Not a pond.
yeah, not a problem. Okay, so yeah, good.
Best working place in Easthampton.
Yeah, maybe.
Have water in my yard. Never have water in my yard.
Okay, cool. And then, and I checked the little under drain outlet. It wasn't like blown out and crazy. So nothing crazy, no crazy failures resulting in that drainage either.
Good. Would you, Kathy, if we get another large event, would you try to make a point to just go check on them again? So we
Yeah.
have more than one data point.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. I can do that. Next update would be for item M, due to Ferry Street, single family home project hasn't been started yet. Gonna reach out about the expiration. They may be interested in just letting it expire because they haven't started it all yet.
Sorry, which one is this?
This is for, it's due to drive / Ferry Street. Okay. It's Philippine.
Yep.
It was for a single family home, but my understanding was originally that they wanted to get the permit for the sale of the property to prove that it could be done, but they didn't actually have active plans to do it at that time.
Okay.
When they got the permit, so they may not be pursuing it. Obviously,
Right.
I need to talk to them, but
Okay.
again, just approaching expiration.
Sure.
June's gonna be a fun month. Expiration.
Yeah.
Same story for 99 Mount Tom app. This is item N. It's set to expire in June as well. We're letting them know. 50 Florence Road, the next item on the list. I did a site visit on April 2nd and have photos. There were some, so they asked me to do the site visit because they wanted me to, the commission had required that they repair the controls along the entire roadway and in the immediate area where they're going to do that regrading work to deal with the ponding. I confirmed that it really wasn't done satisfactorily enough. It's not repaired enough along that area. So concerns in those spaces because it's stable, but since they're going to be driving back and forth a bunch to do the work, that was something that needs to be up before they do that. So I said, hey, come back again. Let me know when it's done. Then you can go forward with that. I did find one area where there was a pretty small hole in the erosion controls near where the ponding has been happening. I was like, you need to repair this immediately. Confirmed that's been repaired. They also did the rest of the roadway already, but we were talking a lot about how the water is there. It's just kind of trapped in this space. And I was like, what is the plan for dewatering it? And they talked about, basically we determined there's 3 things they could do. They were originally planning when they came to propose it to the commission to let it dry out naturally, do the work in like the summertime. but they're concerned that that's like not going to happen
Not happening.
because it's a good amount of water. So, I just reiterated about 1 million times an email and there, like, if you do want to dewater it,
Don't dewater it on your own.
yeah, don't just do it. You need to talk to us and get a plan approved before they go forward. My thought is they have two paths. One would be to maybe dewater, like pump it out into a truck and drive it somewhere and dispose of it properly. Or if they want to try to do something where it dissipates on site, using whatever suitable means to do that, that doesn't result in erosion, just from velocity or volume of water being dewatered. That is potentially, it seems possible, but that would be what they need to get approved,
Right.
By the commission. So I'm kind of waiting on that to see before they get started. They need to tell me what they're going to do with that.
Okay.
But in other words, the silt fencing is in order for them to do that, at least for that piece. So,
Okay.
And then also expiration date is approaching. So that one's in July. Right. I'll be telling them that. Next one would be, item P, 65 Lovefield Street. We did the seasonal site visit. This is for the single family home. 65 Lovefield, there's
Q, right?
Oh, the Q, sorry. Oh, it might be a little off on my document here. Let's see, we did a site visit on March 27th and just everything looks good in terms of perimeter controls. They're on the right track. Project is underway, but they might be coming forward with a request for some minor changes, administrative approval for some minor changes. I won't list them all out now because I don't know what they finally landed on, but maybe next meeting they'll be coming to propose those.
Is that the one? No, it must not be.
It's the house they built in the same footprint.
Right, okay,
They
all
took
right,
down.
great, thank you.
Yep. And then, that was the last one for ongoing projects that I updated on.
Okay, so, excellent. All right, moving on to general business. We have meeting minutes to approve from March 25th. I believe Deb had already made comments.
No, I wasn't able to finish them until today
Okay.
and I wasn't able to distribute them. So I don't know if y'all want to, they're there, but if you want to continue them, that would be just.
So no one's had a chance to.
No,
review.
no.
Okay,
Okay.
then we'll grab those next time. All right, anything on the forest cutting plan, or is that just on here as a keep it in mind?
Just to keep it in mind, the service forester knows to let me know once he gets a submittal of an application to him.
Great.
To actually start the timeline. Has not happened yet.
Okay. Draft comment letter to DEP.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's something you guys would be interested in doing. Basically, there's a group called MSFCP, which is Massachusetts Society of Municipal Conservation Professionals. I am on that. I'm in that group, but it's basically a group of conservation agents. And there's the new regulations that were coming out that I mentioned in a previous meeting for the Wetlands Protection Act. And they've been working to review it and they have a comment letter that they came out with. The one that I sent you guys is 17 pages long, which is really crazy, but I mean, it's impressive, but it was like, I didn't have time to pick all the way through it myself. They refined it down to a 3-page comment letter. They get into a lot and that they have suggestions even that weren't even changes proposed and what's being added. They kind of looked at the whole act and said, here's our chance to ask for a lot of changes. The comments are due April 30th. So I didn't know if the commissioners wanted to say like, yeah, use this as a template and we will also submit these comments. If you guys aren't comfortable with doing that, you don't have to do that. So if you had other comments about the reg changes you wanted me to submit, this would just be an opportunity to do that.
On page 14, and so far, I think they're really good.
Thank you so much for reading that. That's awesome.
Has anybody else had a chance to review? Okay.
I'm afraid I haven't.
All right. I don't think that we have a whole lot to discuss or contribute based on that.
I like the emphasis on protecting vernal pools.
What are they just like? Is there a theme to the regulatory revisions or I should know, I should be paying attention to that.
It's partly stormwater regs related.
So the changes that are forthcoming for the Wetlands Protection Act from DEP is that they are making changes to the stormwater handbook, like a lot of stormwater changes. And then there's also coastal regulation changes that will not impact us at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some other minor project changes, it sounds like, based off of like restoration plans that they're allowing through and like scientific research projects get a little more leeway to be able to go forward. So that might be focused on coastal primarily as well. And then there's focus on nature-based solutions in terms of, I don't know, stormwater management and mitigation. general mitigations. During this.
In general, I would say that the changes are bringing the act a little bit more in alignment with some of the broader thinking at the state level and beyond about stormwater and restoration management, I guess.
Okay.
They've been talking for a long time about lining up the stormwater regs and the act and EPA requirements more tightly, and I think this is hopefully getting us most, if not all of the way there, at least for the moment, until something changes again on one of those.
And there's no telling, when they would actually promulgate these changes. That's the other thing. They might be like, and now we're gonna do this, and then it might be a really long time before they do it, or right when they do it. That's hard to say as well. But the important thing to know is that this is the time they've allotted us to submit comments if we have any. Yes.
Somebody put a lot of time and effort into making these comments. I wouldn't have even if I read all of the inland references, I couldn't have come up with half this stuff. So I appreciate that whoever created this document created it.
I think it was like a team effort of those on the board of MSMCP, but they were doing it. I think a lot of the stuff that's about the existing order or act is stuff that they've like had kind of waiting and comment before and tried to get them to change before. So it's more just like, oh, this is a good opportunity to bang the drum on that again and then do that. So it was, they do good work over there. A lot of the people who are on that board have been doing it for a very long time, which is cool. So.
A lot of good stuff in there about making it easier to do invasive species management or.
All right, wetlands ordinance discussion. I believe that our working group has a meeting scheduled next.
April 30th.
Is that next week?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes.
Next Tuesday,
Yes.
I think. So we'll get back to that. We had a scheduling snafu and have not met in a while, so we'll get back on track and continue to tell you that we'll have an update soon, most likely. I think that's pretty much it. Is there anything else, Cassie, that didn't make it on the agenda? Any other general business from members of the commission? All right.
Move the agenda.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Brian,
Aye.
August,
Aye.
Weeks,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Carr.
Aye.
Motion carries. It is 6:59. And we are concluding tonight's meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Our next meeting will be on May 6th at 6 p.m.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.